Welcome back to the Aspiring Home Cook. My name is Trisha, and in today's video I'm going to show you a dish that's not very common. We're going to make a Val Bean Bhaji or stir-fried Val beans. Now these beans go by different names. I remember growing up my grandmother used to call these Aavre, but they're also called Gothwal or Val beans. In English, these are referred to as hyacinth beans. You may not necessarily find them in your mainstream supermarkets, but they should be relatively easier to find in your local Indian grocery store. Now, if you can't access these Val beans, you can also use butter beans or you can use lima beans. And while the flavor that you get from the beans will differ, you'll still end up with a really tasty dish. Now, these beans are known to have a slightly bitterish taste. And while I didn't have a liking for these growing up, I really find myself enjoying the flavor that these beans add to the dish. So if you've never tried them before and you can find them, go ahead and get yourself a bag. You won't be disappointed. Now, what you can see here are the beans as you get them from the store dried alongside when they've been cooked. So all I've done is soaked them in room temperature water overnight and refresh that water, boil them till they're nice and tender the next morning. Now this here is 1 cup of dried beans that has been soaked overnight, boiled and cooked. And with this done, the most challenging part of your recipe is over. Yes, it's that simple. I'm going to start off by heating a large pan on some medium heat. I'm using a slightly wider pan here so that you can see what's going on. You don't necessarily need a pan this wide. In there, I've added 1 tablespoon of coconut oil. This is virgin coconut oil. And once the oil has melted and heated, I'm going to add in about half a teaspoon of mustard seeds. You'll notice that in that hot oil, these mustard seeds start to splutter relatively quickly. So I've quickly gone in with about 4 to 5 curry leaves. And over here, I've got 1 chili that I've sliced. You can leave this out if you don't like your food too spicy, or adjust the amount of chili that you're using to suit your liking. Next, I'm going to add in 1 large onion that I've chopped up. It's always handy to have all your ingredients ready because once you start tempering these spices, you need to move along fairly quickly. So get all your onion, your chili and everything cut up, and then you can just add them to the pan one after the other. And we're going to saute these onions until they soften a little. Once they've softened, we're going to add in a little ginger and garlic paste. If you've got a combined ginger garlic paste, just add about 3/4 of a teaspoon to 1 teaspoon of it. I've gone in and added about 1/3 of a teaspoon of ginger over here and a little more than half a teaspoon of garlic. I like to keep the amount of garlic a little more than the ginger. It adds a beautiful flavor to the dish. And I'm just going to continue sauteing this. Once the onions have developed a little color like you can see here and the ginger and garlic has fried off, we're ready to go in with our dry spices. I've got about 1/3 of a teaspoon of turmeric powder, 3/4 of a teaspoon of red chili powder. This is a mild Kashmiri chili powder. You can use a mild paprika if you don't have Kashmiri chili powder. And about half a teaspoon of coriander powder. You're going to stir the spices together really well. They don't need much cooking. And at this point, make sure that you're cooking this off on a medium heat. Now, I'm adding a couple of pieces of kokum, which is an Indian souring agent. If you don't have it, that's fine. You can still proceed with the recipe. You'll still end up with a delicious dish. Into this, I've added 2 medium-sized tomatoes. You can add 1 large tomato instead. And we're going to stir all of this together. At this point, I'm just going to add about a tablespoon or so of water just to deglaze the pan. This helps prevent the spices from burning and will also lift up those beautifully caramelized bits from the bottom of the pan. You're going to continue stirring this until that tomato has softened a little. Now at this point, I'm going to add a little liquid into the pan. If you've boiled your beans from scratch like I have, just use some of the stock that's left over from boiling the beans. I'm not using very much water at this stage. I'm just going to add them about a tablespoon at a time to help me deglaze the pan, as well as add a little moisture into the spices. This will let everything in that pan fry off really well without burning. I let this cook off for a couple of minutes, and at this point I'm going to add the beans. Now, while these beans are cooked and tender, they're not mushy. I know that there's a small amount of cooking that will continue, so make sure that you don't overcook your beans when you're boiling them. Stir everything together so that all those beans get coated in that spice mix. And we're going to add a little bit of water as we go along, just to help adjust the consistency. Now, what we're preparing here today is not so much a runny curry, but is more of a thick masala, and that goes really well with some chapatis or rotis or even some crusty bread. I've already put up a couple of videos that show you how to make your own chapatis at home as well as how to make your own bread. If you haven't seen those yet, I'll leave links to those videos in the description box below as well as in the cards above so that you can take a look at them when you're done with this. And all I've done is I've added a little more of that cooking liquid to the pan, and I'm going to let that bubble away for a little bit and give the beans a chance to warm through as well as soak in some of the flavors of those spices. At this point, check for seasoning and add more salt as needed. I can see that this mix has come to a boil now, and at this point I'm just going to lower that heat to a simmer, pop a lid on the pan and let this cook off for about 5 minutes or until the beans have heated through and the gravy is just the consistency that I like. Don't forget to keep an eye on it, add more water if you need to. I still have some liquid in the pan, so I don't need to add any more at this stage. My bhaji has reached a consistency that I'm really happy with. It's only at this stage that I'm going to add a little garam masala powder to the dish. Adding your garam masala at the very end enhances the flavor by leaps and bounds. If you haven't tried this little trick, give it a try when you're making this and you'll see what I mean. I've added about half a teaspoon of garam masala powder in here. Give everything a good stir. I'm going to turn the heat off. And right at the very end, we're going to add some finely chopped coriander leaves and stalks to the dish. This is not just a garnish, but will add some beautiful flavor to the beans as well. I'm going to stir all of that through, and your Val Bean Bhaji is ready to be served. Make sure that you serve this nice and piping hot alongside some freshly made rotis or chapatis or even bread, and sprinkle over a little more freshly chopped coriander just to finish it off. I hope you enjoyed today's simple recipe video. If you did, don't forget to give this video a thumbs up and share it with family and friends that you think might enjoy it too. If you haven't done so already, please subscribe to my channel. Once you do, don't forget to click that little bell icon so that you get notified every time I upload a new video. Thank you so much for joining me today. I'll see you really soon with another delicious recipe. Till then, take care. Bye.